Hi, I'm Abby Paige Stevens. This is Stitchin' with Abby, and I am here to share with you all of the latest and greatest projects that we have coming for you here at Stitchin Heaven. The most recent one we have for you is called Ice Castles, and today I will be sharing with you techniques of how to use paper templates and transfer them to freezer paper so that you can create a beautiful quilt. Let's get stitchin'. Hi, thank you for joining me today as I share with you this new project we have here at Stitchin Heaven called Ice Castles. As always, we ask you to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can keep up on all that's happening here with us at Stitchin Heaven. I want to start out by sharing with you the tools that we need for this project. Of course, we're going to want to grab the pattern. It's called Ice Castles and it is a Deb Luttrell original. We did not select a particular fancy fabric line for this project. We just went out to the storefront and we grabbed some scrappy blue batiks, and we combined those blue batiks with this really pretty, I'm hoping you can see this, pearlescent white print. I don't know if that's showing up very well, but it's got a little bit of a metallic sheen on it, and it really makes this quilt just sparkle. We are going to need a pair of not fabric scissors. We want our paper scissors, our rotary cutter. We have here at Stitchin Heaven these little rulers. They are 2.5 inch by 6.5 inches, and they come in very handy when we will be cutting our paper templates. I'm going to be using my favorite Sew Line Trio pencil, and I'm going to be using the Caterpillar Glow light mat. This is going to help us transfer our templates from the pattern onto freezer paper. So with that said, we also need, we also need some freezer paper. I've just cut a small little piece here. To get started, on the Caterpillar Glow cutting mat, we are not going to need the cutting mat portion of it. We just need the light box portion. So I'm going to set that aside. And we are going to start out by turning on our light box here. And in your pattern, we have a template provided for you. Now, there are all kinds of rulers available to make these shapes. However, if we're just starting out, or right now gas prices are really high, it costs me like $50 or $60 to fill up my little tank of gas. And so I don't necessarily for one project want to go out and purchase a brand new set of rulers. So this is one of those projects where you can just copy directly from the template. We've provided the template for you. And I'm going to show you this technique with freezer paper that makes it really quick and easy to cut out your pieces from your fabric. So I'm actually going to just go ahead and pull this right out of my pattern packet here. Now I have already cut out pieces A through C on this pattern, but I will show you on this last piece how to cut this out. So on freezer paper, we have a kind of a rough, not shiny side, and then you have a slick, shinier side. We want to put the shiny side down because that's what's going to get ironed onto our fabric. So I'm going to use my little Stitchin Heaven ruler here, and I'm going to use pencil. Don't use ink or anything that's water soluble because I'm not going to use steam when I iron. However, if it's accidentally on or if something weird happens, you do not want to have ink on your fabrics or on your iron. That's just a mess. So I'm just using a pencil. So I'm going to line up the edges of the ruler with all of the edges of the template shape. And it's just as simple as tracing. I'm going to get every side, and I am tracing the cut lines. I am not worried about the stitching lines necessarily on this template. Okay, I'm also going to copy and transfer the markings. So this is piece D. I'm going to give myself like a straight of grain marking with an arrow. And I am also going to mark, according to the pattern, piece D goes on a border block piece. And I know that I'm going to need 2 of these per border block. So I'm going to write 2 per border block. And that's just going to help me keep track of how many pieces I need to cut out of this particular shape. Okay, I'm going to set my light box aside. And once you have all of your templates traced, we can just set that aside. And I'm going to start cutting. So again, I am going to continue to use this Stitchin Heaven ruler. And I'm just going to use my rotary cutter. I know normally we don't like to use our cutting utensils on paper, but with a rotary cutter, we replace the blades so often and they're fairly inexpensive compared to a pair of scissors. I find that using the rotary cutter is just fine and it doesn't cause me any problems. So I'm just going to turn this, cut along the lines. If you want to use your paper scissors, you can do that as well. In fact, I am going to use my paper scissors just to nip off these little corner pieces. I find that's just as fast as trying to line up that ruler. All right, and there we have it, a piece D template out of freezer paper. So once we have our pieces cut out, get my little scraps pushed aside here. Once we have all of our pieces cut out, I'll lay them out here for you. So we're going to be making what I call like a tall triangle block. And then we will also be making a border block, which uses the same piece B, like so, and then you'll have a D triangle on each end of it. Okay, so once we have all of our paper pieces cut out, I'm going to take a strip of fabric. I have actually cut this strip to 3.5 inches, which is a tip that I'm going to give you here that is actually not in the pattern, but I find that all of these template shapes, except for piece D needs a 3 7/8 inch strip. Let's see. So I'm going to start out cutting out pieces A1 and A2. So these are going to be cut from, there's a certain yardage that you need of what we say assorted blue batiks. We want them to be about medium to dark in value. And that's what we will cut pieces A1 and A2 out of. You'll notice that they are the same shape. They are mirror images of each other. This is important if you're using a directional fabric. I, however, recommend that you do not use a directional fabric on this particular project because pieces get turned every which way. So I would recommend not using a directional fabric. And another bonus with using batiks is there's not necessarily a right side and a wrong side, and so we're not worried about that either. So it makes it really forgiving as we build this quilt. So I'm going to take my template pieces over here to the iron. And if I were doing this at home, I would probably actually make myself multiples of each template piece. I'm going to make sure my steam is turned off. And I'm going to iron that right on my fabric. Once I have that ironed on, you can do more than one piece at a time. I'll go ahead and do that here. Once those are ironed on, now I'm not worried about template pieces. Oh, that one didn't stick down very well. I'm not worried about template pieces shifting as I'm cutting them out, which is the beauty of using the freezer paper as a template. Let's get these set aside here. So we're done with those for the moment. Okay, and again, I'm using my small little Stitchin Heaven ruler. I don't want anything that's huge and wieldy in my way because I want to be able to really see the edges of this paper. The risk of using these paper template pieces like this is if you are at all over your paper, the edge of your paper, when you go to cut this, you're going to start shaving down your template, and pretty soon your pieces get smaller and smaller. So you really want to be sure that you are not cutting any paper off of this when you cut your shapes. So I try to just look through the ruler. Our rulers here, they're completely clear. They're not yellow. There's no color to them. They're completely clear. So I can look through and I can see about 1 thread's worth of fabric that's inside of the edge of the ruler. So now I can just cut away. Oh, see, there I got my paper a little bit. That's all right, because I'm just doing this one shape for now. Clip that little corner. The nice thing about these templates that we've designed for you as well is that we have engineered corners on them, which takes a little bit more time as you're cutting. But when you're piecing and you're sewing them together, it makes it so easy to line everything up so that you get these perfect 1/4" seams and everything comes together nicely. I'm going to go ahead and cut out this other piece as well. I do have my strip folded in half, so I'm getting 2 at a time here as I cut. There we go. Get that last corner off. And there we have it. Now this freezer paper is really easy to peel off. So there's my second piece in the back. And it peels right away, and you've got these perfect shapes, and your pieces are reusable. You can reuse them several times before they start losing their adhesive on the back. Okay, and there we have it. So once we have those pieces cut, we are going to cut 4 of each half per block. I set those aside. I've already got several of these already made. I'll show you how it goes together. So you're going to cut for each block in this, this quilt takes 2 different blocks. There's a star block, an 8-pointed star block, and then there is a snowball block that come together to form the pattern that you see behind me. So for each star block, you're going to start out by cutting 4 of piece A, which is this tall triangle, and then you'll cut 4 each of A1 and A2. And they get arranged like so. When you'll see when I lay this out, flip it over to sew it, you can see how all these clip corners line up, and then I can sew my 1/4" seam. So I'm going to step to the side here and we'll take care of that. Once you have your first A piece sewn on, I'm just going to give it a quick finger press, open, and I'm going to flip my other piece on the other half and take that to the machine. I've got my second piece sewn on, and I'm going to give that a quick finger press open. And it looks like that. I am going to go ahead now and give it a press with the iron. Just to make sure the seams are nice and flat. All right, so we are going to need, again, 4 of these units per block, per star block. We are also going to need some half square triangles for this block, and we are going to use the technique where we have 2 squares. They're cut 3 7/8 inches. We're going to layer them together, right sides together. Again, it doesn't really matter with the batik. Every now and then I can tell the difference. The way I can usually tell the difference is one side, just the edges of the print seem just a little bit crisper than the other side, but the difference is so minuscule that it doesn't matter. But the white metallic print, it definitely has a right side. So we're going to put that right sides together. I'm going to use my ruler and mark a line corner to corner with my sew line pencil. And then I'm going to take that to the machine and I am going to sew a 1/4 inch away from each side of the line. Once I have that sewn together, I'm going to, again, use my ruler. I'm going to place it on that line that I drew with my pencil. And I'm going to cut it corner to corner diagonally. And then I will press those half square triangles open. Do a quick little finger press. I'm a finger presser. I just find it helps with my accuracy and make sure those seams are all the way open before I take them to the iron. So now we've ended up with 2 half square triangles. I'm going to take those to the iron and get them pressed. I'm not doing a whole lot of wiggling here with the iron. I am just placing it down just to give it some heat. And there we have it. So you are going to need 4 half square triangles, which I have already got made over here for this block. And we are going to place it with the white half facing in towards the center. So each of these units is now 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches square. And then we need a 3.5 inch solid, again, blue batik here in the center. You will notice that I'm not matching blue batiks in the half square triangles. That's the beauty of this quilt, is there is such a variety of the blues, and they're mixed in, and when you stand away from this quilt, it literally looks like it's sparkling. And so this is a great way just to use up some of those scraps that you may have laying around. I don't know that I particularly like having both of these blues on the same side that match, so I'm gonna mix those up just because I feel like it. Oh, let's make sure it's turned the right way. You do, however, want your star points to all match, because then that's what really makes that star pop out. Okay, once we've got all of our units created, we are just going to start assembling this. So I'm going to sew my units together into 3 rows, and then I'm going to sew the rows together. So I'll get that done here. This is what the quilt block looks like when it's all done. I did decide to rearrange some of the fabrics, so you'll notice they're a little bit different. But again, we're using a whole collection of different blue fabrics, blue batiks for our points and our star here. So that is the 8-pointed star. The other block we are going to need is a snowball block. And the technique that we use for this one is we cut ourselves a 9.5-inch square out of our white pearlescent fabric. And then we're going to take 3 7/8-inch squares, and we're going to place one each corner. Again, these are a mix. They do not have to match. It's all very random. So again, that makes this project very forgiving and is a great way to use up some scraps. Okay, so once we have those on there, I'm going to draw a line from corner to corner. So the nice thing about this pencil is that I have different colors, 3 different colors depending on what fabric I'm drawing on. So this blue is pretty dark, so I'm going to use the white lead here in this pencil. And then I will probably use the white also on this one. This one's a little bit darker. And we'll get our third one. Oop, my lead broke. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to switch back to the gray so I can see it on this lighter blue. I'm going to stick a quick pin in one of the corners here just to hold these in place while I take them to the machine. Just so things don't slide around on me. And I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to sew right on that line. Again, I've stitched along each line, cutting the corners of the square. I'll get my pins out of here. And I'm going to line up the 1/4-inch line of my ruler along the stitching line so that when I trim away, I'm left with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. If you've been really precise with this and you get a really precise 1/4-inch, all of these triangles that you cut away will be the same size and can be saved for another project. All right, I've got all of those corners cut away. I'm going to give those a quick press open. A snowball block is a really fun, quick, easy block to make, and it makes a really great in-between block to coordinate with other blocks to get different patterns, which is really fun. So that's what the snowball block looks like. I'm going to give it a quick press with the iron just to make sure everything stays open nice and crisp. And there we have it. The last unit that we need for this project is the border unit. Now, there will be 2 borders on this quilt. There will be a large dark blue border that matches this. And then this is what we call a border unit, and this will be the inner unit. So when you have these 2 matching fabrics together next to each other, you end up with this really cool like jagged border around the edge, which is really interesting and fun to look at. So for this unit, we need pieces C1 and C2, piece A, and then 2 piece D units. I do want to point out that we get our piece D units by taking a 3 7/8" square and we're going to cut it once diagonally. And then we can take our template, let's find the correct one here. And then we can take our template we can iron that on real quickly. I find that cutting like squares and then cutting them diagonally is a little bit faster than fussing with cutting around each side individually on this unit. And I'm actually just going to use scissors. These are not my fabric scissors, so forgive me. It's just what was sitting there. And I'm just going to clip those corners. Okay, and I would do the same thing to the other piece as well. So I'll set those units aside. I've already got things prepped and ready to go here. This unit can get just a little bit tricky, and so I want to point this out to you. The piece C, if this won't be as difficult if you are using a printed fabric, because you'll be able to know the right side from the wrong side. But if you're using batiks and you can't tell the right side from the wrong side, this may accidentally happen. So I've got this piece flipped upside down, and now I no longer have a straight line across. It's kind of shooting down this direction. If that happens, no big deal. This is why I lay everything out before I start sewing. So we want to make sure that we have a nice straight line all the way across there. So I'll start by sewing piece C to piece A. And again, we've got these corners all engineered for you, so they're really easy to line up. And I'll use my 1/4" seam. Once I've got my first piece on, I'm going to put the next C on. And again, my corners match up. All right, I've got that one pressed open. And now I'll add my D pieces on each end. I'm going to go ahead and lay both on there and put a pin in so I don't have to go to the sewing machine more than once. Okay. All right, and there we have it. A completed border unit. I'm going to take that to the iron and give it a press to make sure my seams are nice and crisp. And all of my units are complete. So when you begin to assemble this quilt, you will alternate a star patch with a snowball block. And you'll start to get these kind of elongated star shapes where the white all comes together. And then you'll have your 8-pointed stars. It's been really fun to share with you all of these new techniques. I appreciate you spending this day with me and learning all about ice castles. We will have kits available for this here in the store. This will be a project that we will probably keep on hand for quite a while because it is a scrappy quilt. It doesn't require a specific fabric collection. And so I think it'll be a standard here at the store for quite some time. And as always, we will have the pattern available on its own that you can purchase either as a digital download or as a physical printed pattern. Again, hit that subscribe button so that you can keep up on all that's happening with us here at Stitchin Heaven, and I will see you next time. Bye.